So, what are most of us worried about? Doing some reading this morning, and I found some really interesting numbers. And this is not in any particular order of importance, but the top three are 62% of all Americans feel like our cost of living is still way too high. Although we acknowledge that in 2025 that's dropped by 7%. So basically 60% of the population is still 62% of the population still has this as the most important concern. And our inflation has dropped since January by seven percentage points. So that's not the overall inflation rate, just how many people have dropped in the making this their priority worry. 60% of all Americans are disgusted with Congress's inability to work together. They're fighting, they're arguing, they're name calling, weaponizing the government against each other. 60% of the population want it stopped, and that has increased by 15% since 2020. So 60% of us, over 50% of the population, we're tired of it. We want the Congress to work together. We want all of this to stop because it is so detrimental to the welfare of all Americans and our way of life, our country. 60% of Americans worry about their health and their health care costs. Obamacare failed completely. I can tell you as an insurance agent, the cost of private insurance, if you have to go buy it yourself, is going to be about $1,200 per person in your household. That's not a household full of people. That's one person on the private market today is $1,200. So think about that for a second. Times 12. Plus there's massive deductibles. Plus there's massive out-of-pocket. It's out of control. It is the single most destructive expense that Americans have because it has and is bankrupting Americans, especially older Americans who are developing chronic medical problems who are not yet 65 and eligible for Medicare. It's just staggering. Absolutely staggering, the cost of medical. The ceiling is, we've got to figure something out. Obamacare was a complete and total failure. The next thing on our importance as far as our worry list is the drug addiction. We've got to figure out how to get our young kids off drugs. The majority of the population, or the biggest percentage of our population on drugs, is the younger generations. The next thing is our debt ceiling. We've got to get our debt ceiling under control. We've got to balance our budget. That number, the approval rating on that number has actually dropped significantly since January because of the amount of money that has been found that was being used for ridiculous things that is now no longer cut and is applying towards that overall lowering of our debt ceiling. Borders are still a major priority. 75% of the American people agree with the change in the border and the tightening of the border regulations. So most Americans feel that our borders are much safer in 5 months than they were under the Biden administration. And then there's a lot of concern about gun violence in the United States. Most of this is driven from the school shootings that are in the United States. This is a hot topic because there's a lot of people, including myself, who are never going to give up our guns because I have the right to defend myself. My doors are not for my protection, they're for your protection. Because if you come to my door and you're uninvited and you try to find your way in, well, you're not going to get any further than through the threshold, and then you're going to find my partners that are with me at all times, Smith & Wesson. So we are not going to give up our gun rights. We are entitled to defend ourselves. So I think the one thing that surprised me in reading this today was the amount of Americans who are voicing their disgust and their desire for our government to stop all this, to work together and to come to somewhere close to the middle. You know, it astounds me that, you know, in the last election cycle, the Democrats were all about, you know, joy, faith, and love, and how they were going to be the party to reunite the American people, and that they were going to take the necessary steps to bridge the divide, and that they were going to be the party that was going to fix all of that. Well, the only way they can do that is to stop their rhetoric, and they don't want to do that, you see. Even though there was a valid election, even though they certified that election, they still, to this day, would rather create havoc and chaos instead of coming to the middle, working things out, talking things out, because they're just irrational. They're just absolutely irrational. And the big problem, you see, is the power shift has already taken place. What they used to be able to control, they no longer can control. And they're going to scream and yell and do everything they possibly can to upset that apple cart, irregardless of whether or not it hurts you and me as Americans, because it's not about you and me. Their driving force is not about you and me. It's about socialism, power, control, and the money they get in their pocket. And that's always going to override what you and I as the American people need on a day-to-day basis. That's their MO, always has been their own MO. Just now it's on the front pages instead of in the back rooms. And now Americans are realizing just how destructive their platform is. They are not the platform of love, joy, and inclusion. They are the platform of destruction, division, and hatred. All you have to do is watch this app to see the amount of that is on here every single day. And there's no way, in my opinion, that you're ever going to get a rational, cooperative effort, because there's just not enough rational Democrats and rational followers. I would say, don't know the number, but it has to be in single digits. So you're never going to change the direction of a party when only less than 10% of them are rational and willing to come to the middle. It could be the one thing that ultimately, if we don't figure it out and figure out a way to change it, it could be the one single thing that brings this country down. That's a scary thought. It's not one person. I hate to tell you that on the left. It's your entire movement that creates this cancerous discord. And until you can get past your loss, like we had to do, I just don't know. But there's some numbers for you to think about. What we all are concerned about in July 2025.